Deep in the heart of the Appalachian Mountains, there was a forest that the locals called the Whispering Pines. It was a place spoken of in hushed tones, a place where strange things happened. People claimed to hear voices, see fleeting shadows, and feel an unshakable sense of being watched. Most folks avoided it altogether, but one boy, Nathaniel, did not heed the warnings. Nathaniel was 13, a wiry boy with restless legs and an insatiable curiosity. He lived with his mother in a weathered cabin at the edge of the forest. His father had died the previous winter in a logging accident, leaving Nathaniel feeling hollow and angry. When his mother warned him not to go into the woods, he took it as a challenge. The morning he disappeared started like any other. The sun was rising through a haze of fog, its pale light spilling through the trees. Nathaniel had set out early with his knapsack and a pocket knife, determined to find out what was so special and forbidden about those woods. As he crossed the threshold of trees, the air grew cooler, the light dimmer. The pines stood like solemn sentinels, their dark green needles whispering softly in the breeze. Nathaniel felt a shiver of excitement. It was quieter here than he expected, save for the crunch of leaves underfoot and the occasional caw of a distant crow. For hours he wandered deeper into the forest, marveling at its stillness. He found no trace of the strange voices or shadows that the townsfolk spoke of, only the faint scent of pine and earth. But just as he was about to turn back, he noticed something peculiar. The trees around him seemed taller, their trunks thicker, their branches weaving into a dense canopy that blotted out the sun. And then the whispering began. At first it was so faint that Nathaniel thought it was the wind, but as he stood still, straining his ears, he realized the sounds were words, spoken in a chorus of voices too low to understand. "Nathaniel, hello?" A sudden gust of wind swept through the trees, carrying with it a faint scent of smoke. Nathaniel turned in a slow circle, his heart pounding. The forest felt different now, oppressive, watchful. He pulled his jacket tighter and started walking back the way he came. But no matter which direction he chose, the path ahead seemed unfamiliar. "Nathaniel, just retrace your steps." But the whispering resumed, louder this time. Whispering voices, "Stay! Stay with us." Nathaniel broke into a run, his breath coming in short gasps. The trees seemed to crowd closer, their gnarled branches reaching for him like skeletal hands. The forest floor grew uneven, tripping him up and sending him sprawling. As he pushed himself upright, he noticed something odd. There were no birds, no insects, no sounds of life, only the whispering. Panic set in. Nathaniel shouted for help, his voice echoing through the silent woods, but no reply came. The sun was now a faint smear of light behind the thick canopy, and shadows pooled around him like black water. He stumbled forward until he came upon a clearing. In the center stood a decrepit wooden cabin, its roof sagging and its windows dark. Smoke curled lazily from the chimney, and the faint smell of charred wood filled the air. Against every instinct, Nathaniel approached, hoping to find someone, anyone, who could help him. The door creaked open on its own as he stepped onto the porch. "Nathaniel, hello?" The interior was dim, lit only by the glow of a smoldering hearth. The air inside was heavy and smelled of decay. The furniture was sparse, a rocking chair, a small table and a bed covered in a tattered quilt. On the table lay a faded photograph in a cracked frame. Nathaniel picked it up. It showed a family, a stern-faced man, a smiling woman, and a boy who looked eerily like him. Whispering voice, "You're home." Nathaniel spun around, but no one was there. The cabin door slammed shut, and the whispering swelled to a cacophony. The walls seemed to close in, the shadows deepening until the room was pitch black. "Nathaniel, who's there?" Whispering voices. "You belong to us." The floor beneath Nathaniel gave way, and he fell into darkness. When Nathaniel awoke, he was lying on a bed of pine needles. The forest was quiet again, the air still and heavy. Disoriented, he sat up and looked around. The cabin was gone, replaced by a ring of ancient, moss-covered stones. In the center of the ring was a charred patch of earth. The whispering had stopped, but the forest felt no less sinister. Nathaniel's pocket knife was gone, as was his knapsack. He had nothing but the clothes on his back. Desperate, he began walking, calling out for his mother. Hours passed, or perhaps days. Time seemed to stretch and warp under the shadow of the pines. Nathaniel grew weak from hunger and thirst, but no streams or berries presented themselves. And then he saw her. A woman stood at the edge of a clearing, her back to him. She wore a simple dress, and her dark hair was pulled into a loose bun. She looked familiar, though Nathaniel couldn't place her. "Nathaniel, Mom!" She turned slowly, and Nathaniel froze. Her face was pale and gaunt, her eyes sunken and empty. She opened her mouth to speak, but no sound came out. Instead, the whispering returned, emanating from her as if she were a conduit for the forest itself. Whispering voices run. Nathaniel didn't need to be told twice. He bolted in the opposite direction, the woman's hollow eyes burning in his mind. The forest seemed to shift around him, twisting paths and uprooting trees to block his escape. Finally, he emerged into a familiar grove, the one near his family's cabin. Relief washed over him as he saw the smoke curling from their chimney. He sprinted to the door, flung it open, and collapsed into his mother's arms. "Mother, where have you been?" "Nathaniel, the woods, I got lost. There was a cabin and voices." His mother's face turned pale. "Mother, you didn't go into the Whispering Pines, did you?" Nathaniel nodded weakly. "Mother, you must never go back there, do you hear me? Never!" Nathaniel promised, but as he lay in bed that night, the whispering returned, soft, insistent, and coming from the woods outside his window. Whispering voices, "Come back, you belong to us." Nathaniel buried his head under the covers, but deep down he knew the truth. He had left the forest, but a part of him had stayed behind, and one day it would call him home.